Hello, Tansi. Thank you for being with me this evening. My name is Brett Ballin, and I am presenting this in partial fulfillment for the requirements of the Music 838 course under Dr. C towards a Master of Music and Music Education degree. I'll begin by sharing my screen. Serious guys, this is take 13. I am doing my absolute best here. Okay. I present to you the role of wind band conductors in advancing truth and reconciliation in Canadian public schools, or together we hold respect eternally. Kia no Uniswit. We learn from those we love. Mamawe Nikanan, Kikwese, Bikesekwewanan, Kitakeswanan. I am not pronouncing that properly. I already know because I have not consulted the stars and applied the star chart appropriately, but I'm doing, again, the best I can. In 6 parts, a short background, the reluctance that I've seen to address the calls to action, some methods that we might put into the classroom, the power that music holds, and the opportunities to apply all these things. Let's first take in some conducting examples from Indigenous ensembles. Is this conducting? This is the Northern Nehia 2017, the Treaty 6 flag song. And Elder Randy Woods singing an original song, Remember Me, a beautiful blending of Eastern and Western cultures.
Remember me down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hi-yo, hey-yo, hey-yo. Hey-yo, hey-yo.
I invite you to take these in as potentially, at least in my perspective, the first Indigenous content that you might have viewed as part of a course. What right do I have to speak about this? Well, objectively, not much. Here's my 23andMe. The bluer it gets, the whiter I am. In the process of being a settler teacher, I have been very fortunate and privileged to take in the teachings of a number of elders, culture bearers, traditional knowledge keepers, and other very human allies to help repair the damage that's been done. And they've taught me that we are all treaty people, and together we hold respect eternally. Kino Iniswin. A very short definitions thing, just in case. Colonization means Eurocentric dominance in all of its forms. Decolonization is trying to repair that damage that has been done. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada is a 94-point framework for addressing injustices against Indigenous peoples and focusing on healing the damage that's been done. Colonization is both physical in terms of land and person, and psychological. Banned programs in public schools can and do function as agents of settler colonialism, perpetuating the colonization of the mind. The last place left, because there's no more land left to colonize, the last place left to colonize is your minds. In my long career, I've noticed a reluctance to change, both in this institution and the one that I work for. Band programs on Treaty 6 land are doing relatively the same thing as about 100 years ago. There's been very little movement of the needle for truth and reconciliation work in these programs. We can shift quickly. COVID proved it. And then we went right back. We know that rapid change is possible. My elementary school bands, 15 years ago-ish, were benefit to being under the baton of Samuel Hazo. And I quote him, and he was saying this in terms of phrasing for a flute section. Don't do the same thing twice. You know, when there's a repeat, try to do it different the second time. Because it's weird if you do it the same twice. Let me prove it. I love you. I love you. I love you. Oh, I love you. Second one's better, right? No contest. Extrapolate that to pre-Confederation. We've been doing the same thing twice. Tacitly supporting the superstructures that allow for the perpetuation of the settler colonial state is antithetical to decolonization. We're all culpable. I know that's uncomfortable, but we are all culpable for perpetuating colonialism of both the land and of the mind. But don't seek for absolution, to apologize. Seek to help repair the damage that has been done in your practices as wind band conductors moving forward. And you're not exempt from the calls to action. So what are those calls to action? We call upon the federal government to, and I summarize, close gaps, eliminate discrepancies, identified educational gap closing, and improving education. I invite you to read this entire document. I hope you have. Indigenous students tend not to participate in wind band. Where participation in band gives access to opportunities, privileges, scholarships, networking, employment, creating identifiable gaps. Therefore, the through line in the calls to action is to close those gaps. So why don't they decline to participate? Let's find out. There's a great many reasons to participate in wind band in schools. We all know this. That's why we're here. But why don't Indigenous students do this? Why don't they participate? Well, cultural relevance, first of all. That one's obvious. But also rebellion as survival. Rebellion against the colonial weaponry and violent imagery that wind bands may present in the perspective of Indigenous Canadians. I was lucky to talk to Professor Knight, who works in the Women's and Gender Studies department at this very university. You might know her better through her stage name, Equal, hip-hop artist. Fuel for FNIM students is having something to push against. And a large part of FNIM psychology of the last few generations, she says, is that they need rebellion because rebellion is what our ancestors used for survival. So choosing not to participate in voluntary colonial activities like wind band is an act of survival. Marching band, drum corps, wind band, they all come from military traditions. Music has been used intentionally as a colonial tool for reculturalization in Canada. But British and French, and also settlers in general, to sophisticate the savages. I don't need to reference this. This is common truth. And Western music was exclusively taught in those residential schools. So think of this from the perspective of an elder attending a band concert. An elder that was taken from their family as a youth by the armed RCMP, and then their children taught this music in those schools. The imagery of a director wielding a baton, a weapon, perhaps, that induces cohesion and mass compliance, while the results may be a beautiful sound, can be interpreted as violent by FNM students and any of their allies. So why aren't they participating? Well, we learn from those we love. And in the context of Indigenous Canadians, can you really love that image? You can try, but against their ways of knowing, as much as I know as a settler, authority is earned and democracy is intrinsic. Methodological control is not. Let's talk about colonized and methodologically controlled band directors. The traditional band director conducts and rehearses pieces, demands excellence, disallows dissent, views problems as obstacles instead of opportunities, all for the benefit of putting their teaching on display. This is how I was trained. This is how I practiced for a long time. So this may be how you professionally practice. The progressive band director solves problems as a group, embraces mistakes, and allows student input towards a transformative experience through group music making. The method which you were trained starts to lose legitimacy, and group performance is secondary. From Doctors Alsop and Benedict, I'll summarize as best I can here. My band consistently won highest rankings at the state competitions, so why should I change my thinking about my own band program and my wind band conductor? And they're carrying forward, imagining or accepting a conductor who engages in practices that may be construed as not in control or abnormal serves to reproduce the hegemony of the wind band program as a social institution. We must examine our own complicity in perpetuating and replicating particular role models and social institutions that do not lead towards a citizenry that is not dominated. Let's talk about putting this in the classroom. Dr. Martin Brokenleg, mentor of mine. He adapted the medicine wheel, which I hope you're all familiar with, to be better used in the classroom. Check it out. It can help heal students. Generosity, belonging, independence, mastery, those are all parts of being in a concert band. And those are great parts. This is the medicine wheel. One can use it in a lot of ways to help heal the individual. That's been done for tens of thousands of years. So I invite you to put these ideas into practice in your classroom. You can do medicine wheel journaling. You can attend ceremony. You can do land-based retreats instead of a band trip. You can talk about how Nahia syllabics are pronounced differently based upon the position upon the stars, which is absolutely fascinating. You could just put up the Treaty 6 flag in your room. It's been around since 1876. You don't see it a lot, do you? It's on the front of the Ed building. Nice gesture. It's not in the classrooms yet. You could have someone come in to sing this Treaty 6 song instead of O Canada. The Northern Cree sang it earlier in this presentation. You could put up the Nehayaw star map instead of the Circle of Fifths. You can invite culture bearers to share their knowledge in your classrooms, and you can prioritize all of these ahead of winning a festival medal, putting yourself on display. As an educator, as a conductor, it's not about you. Speaking of the star map, here it is. Thank you, Elder Kathy, for this teaching. Through a sociological lens, the top 3 identity markers for teenager adolescent identity development are the music you listen to, the company that you keep, and the clothes that you wear. Those are the identity markers. Notably, culture is absent from this. So music has a great power. If students are at the wheel of their own music education through music, they're more likely to claim their identities and become democratic citizens, aware of the damage that's been done, as opposed to conforming to the ideals of a clearly problematic gatekeeper of knowledge, the band director. That has less favorable results. We need process instead of product. We need democracy, patience, love, and empathy, decolonization of the mind, symbols of change in the classrooms. And there's no better subject suited to serve to an antidote for the toxicity and venom that cognitive imperialism and colonialism has applied to all of us. Drive to work, pay for this car. Pay for this car to drive to work. This cyclic thing, I hope you can be an antidote to it. We're educators first. So, who are our students in wind band classes? They're not Indigenous. So this is where the work needs doing. The work in these classrooms may invite future empathy and understanding. And I ask you to ask yourselves, are you helping heal the damage that has been done? Or are you stuck in 1876? Is it actions, or is it promised intentions that never come to be? This is where you come in. 33.3% of band programs in Saskatoon at the secondary level have nothing, no music education program. So it's you. You're the next wave. Your students are not player pianos for you to exploit. There's a void and there's an opportunity. Inaction is yours to take. At the same time, there's a movement towards morality and ethics at this realm, but the academic references are lacking, which leads me to believe that this is a bit of a flash in the pan. This is just something that's going to go away. That saddens me. Except that I'm lying to you. Here's the resources. And those are just the ones that I could be bothered to put in here and format in this particular presentation. Are you willing to undo the damage that's been done or not? It's binary. I know this has been heavy. I offer you a big Shimigwech, a big thank you, and I invite you to make it so. Aho.